TNA Wrestling crossed that line again as Against All Odds has finished. And now we move forward on the road to Slammiversary, which you can see live on the TNA Plus app. Get it downloaded, get it subscribed, get that championship package, and you will not miss a second of the action. And I believe, if you are still listening in the UK and Ireland, firstly, thank you. And secondly, if you want to take advantage of a 1 month's free TNA Plus app, type in Leon YIC in the code, and courtesy of the youngest in charge, Leon Slater, you will have a month's free. But we need to move on to this week's Impact, the fallout from Against All Odds. And as I said, that road to Slammiversary next month. That's going to be a big one. That's going to be a huge one. Slammiversary, one of the biggest TNA pay-per-views of the year. And of course, like I said, only way you can watch it is get subscribed to the TNA Plus app. But let's move on. TNA Impact started this week on the outside. It's a bit more less dangerous than the NXT car park, that's for sure. But Santana was walking through. Santino Marella stops him, and Santana is suspended for 2 weeks. He can't get his hands on AJ Francis just yet. And although Santana didn't agree with the suspension that Santino said was brought on, obviously from the top, not necessarily him, but he will do his best to get the match with AJ Francis sorted, so Santana can finally get his hands on him. And Santana was like, "Look, I respect you, not because of the sheriff's badge, but because of who you are and the man that you are." And Santana turned around and walked out of the Impact Zone. But as he was walking out, Robert Stone was trying to get in. Now, those of you that will seen Against All Odds will know Santino defeated Robert Stone to still be the director of Authority in TNA. And Robert Stone made it into the building just, and security threw him back out of the building. So that was quite a funny moment to kick off TNA. Robert Stone not taking the loss Against All Odds very well at all. But we need to move on to the Impact Zone. And Santino Marella kicks off proceedings. Um, and, now he's back to being director of Authority. He stepped down for the match Against All Odds. He is back now. And the first call of action, which I 1,000,000% agree with, at Slammiversary, we saw Against All Odds Leon Slater pin Moose in the match that they had. Well, that has had repercussions as we go into Slammiversary, because it is going to be Moose. It is going to be Leon Slater one-on-one at Slammiversary. The time is now. I'm finding that clip where I said Leon would be X Division champion in 2025. It is happening at Slammiversary, and I can't wait for that. And I'm so looking forward to it. And it's going to be, it could be a coming of age moment for Leon Slater. But then he moved on to Trick Williams. And obviously, everyone in the TNA locker room, maybe barring First Class, when he gets his hands on Trick Williams. And we'll see what happens, and we go forward with that. But finally, Santino wraps up, and we move into our first match by welcoming back Cassie Lee, Jessica McKay. I think, I don't know this was one of these mispronunciations that Santino is so renowned for, but I think he said Gasoline when he was talking about Cassie Lee. It certainly sounded that way. Anyway, but Cassie Lee, Jessica McKay, the Inspiration are back. And we have to shout out Harley Cameron here. I know she's AEW, but she was the one that does the voiceover for the song for the Inspiration. And the song is an absolute banger. I love it. I think it's great. And it's also great to see Cassie Lee, Jessica McKay back. And, one of the things that I was saying, and although they were actually quite over in the WWE when they were in there, the point I've been making about the AJ Francis, about the Ash by Elegance, where they've kind of come back out of the WWE, gone to TNA and made this big difference. And they've been, sort of reinvented themselves in a different way over there and showing you just how good they actually are. Well, Cassie Lee and Jessica McKay were doing that years ago when when they turned to TNA the first time. And so it was just an embodiment of what I've been saying all along, that, you get the TV time, you get to do your character, the world see you week in, week out. Everything makes a difference. And the inspiration certainly well, the embodiment of that before even AJ Francis and Dane and Ash by Elegance. But the inspiration were indeed in action. We did see the iconic pose as well, which was fantastic. They were going against Brittany Brooks and someone I know very well from NWA, actually, Missa Kate. Match wasn't too long, to be quite honest with you. It was quite a quick match. Realistically, a good welcome back to TNA for the inspiration. They certainly weren't going to lose this match, and they did not. They hit the idolizer on Missa Kate for the victory. I would say, though, just going on about Missa Kate quite quickly on this, I want to see more of her in TNA. I liked her in NWA. I thought she had something there in NWA, and we just sort of discussed it before, that coming to TNA weekly TV, get yourself on there, your character, introduce yourself to the audience, get them to love you or hate you, or whatever you need them to do. Mr. Kate's got a lot of talent, and I really hope that. I don't think she's signed by TNA to a permanent contract. I'm not aware that she is or she isn't. Could correct me if I'm wrong. You certainly can. But I like her, and I think she could add something to that knockouts division. And I hope that they do sign her permanently, because she's definitely got something there as Mr. Kate. But look, it was all about the inspiration. They were never going to lose this match. They didn't. They were always going to win, and they've got their eyes firmly on the Elegance prize, which is the Knockouts Tag Team Championships, wanting to win them back in there. But a welcome return to TNA from the inspiration. We look forward to seeing maybe the Slammiversary, they get their opportunity at the Elegances, and we'll see. We go back to the Hardys right now. They were their upcoming main event match against First Class. They were the main event this week on TNA Impact. They have to go through Francis and Navarro, but ultimately their eyes are firmly set on the tag team division and the tag team champions in TNA, and that obviously is the Nemeth brothers, who, if you would like to see an interview with the Nemeth brothers on this channel, go to the playlist below and you will be able to see the interview that I've recently done with the Nemeth brothers. It was really, really good, really enjoyable. But Matt and Jeff got to get through First Class first before they can think about the opportunity for the Nemeth brothers, and obviously a First Class win. Potentially, then there is an opportunity maybe for them to go for the Nemeth brothers and be first in line for the championship opportunity at Slammiversary, perhaps. But before we even get to that, before we even get to the main event, and speaking of First Class, we go to the penthouse, where, of course, they introduce themselves. That the fans don't are fuming with First Class after costing Santana the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. They do a merch plug. I'm sure they're going to sell thousands of merch with what they've just done. But Pedro come to the crowd. I'm not quite sure about that. But finally, after all of that, we do get the introduction of TNA World Heavyweight Champion, NXT superstar Trick Williams. He was put in First Class over in this as well. And he said he said the TNA World title would look better if they get more titles to go with it. And that's what we've just been discussing. First Class, Hardys in the main event. If they win, surely they'll be in line for the championship. And then, of course, we could have all three. Now, Trick Williams, I don't think is necessarily in First Class, the group, but he's certainly aligning himself with them for now, or for at least for the short-term future. He'll be aligning himself with First Class. And they did do a little bit with Trick's theme song, as I tuck the morning Joe in my mouth. Need that first thing in the morning. They bopped to Trick Williams' song to end that particular segment on the show. But we move now to the system. They confront Jason Hotch and they kind of start to play mind games with Hotch. Now, Hotch and Ali and everyone else, and they all show up. But there's been a bit of dissension in Order 4 recently. Ali showing he's more ruthless and maniacal side. Got a little stare down, um, but Ali, takes his faction away for Hotch's upcoming match. But then the system confronts Matt Cardona, who says that he and his tag team partner will take on the system in a tag team match next week on the show. Now the rest of the system leave, but Brian Myers and Cardona have a massive stare off. Now we know these two are tag team specialists. They were tag teams together in the WWE for a long time, really best of friends as well. So Myers and Cardona, I don't know. I'm not sure. But the system did also say about to Jason Hotch about, taking out Leon Slater. Because that's the match that we're just about to talk about. So they did get, it was night system trying to get Hotch to take out Slater ahead of Leon's match with Moose at Slammiversary. This was really, any match with Leon, obviously, and biasness aside, was always going to be um, great. And you know what, though? Jason Hotch and John Schuyler are very, very. I think maybe they go unnoticed a little bit with TNA. And that's nothing against TNA. I just think that there's so much other stuff going on that you kind of, you forget how good these are. This was a really, really solid match between the two. I really enjoyed it. And both of these guys, really, I mean, Leon can carry the X division on his back, but so can Hotch. It wasn't his time right now. It's all about Leon Slater right now. Leon is the one that's going to do it. But I tell you what, Hotch's time will come. And I think that'll be something to do with Ali and perhaps them two, colliding or whatever. But that's a huge thing. Jason Hotch is, we just don't see it enough at the moment, where he is with the Ali stuff and everything like that. But it just showed in this match how great that he is. And I really hope that we get to see more of Jason Hotch going forward in singles action. But Leon did pick up the victory with that 450 cent on. And Leon also trying to take the amazing Reds record of the youngest ever X Division champion. And if that's not enough big enough reason to put the title on him, TNA, I don't know what is. But put that title on Leon ASAP. Tessa, moving on to Tessa Blanchard. She was backstage. They're going to do an 8-4-1 match soon for to be number one contender for the Knockouts Championship. Tessa doesn't really care. She puts herself over. She's lost the match already to Masha, by the way. But she did go on and say that the division needs a reminder of the person who built it, seemingly to think, that would be her. And speaking of the 8-4-1 knockouts number one contendership match, it is it. It's time for it. This was great. So the way this starts off, there's 4 women on each team. Once whoever wins, so they do like an 8-woman tag. The winners of the 8-woman tag, it then goes into a fatal 4-way. So the members of the winning team then go against each other, and the first person that gets a pinfall wins the match. It was, I love this because this is a really innovative match. Normally, and you see it quite a lot on other shows. They'll just do a triple threat match or a fatal 4-way or an eliminator or something like that. But TNA like to be innovative with the matches, and I like that. It's really cool. And we saw one, I think last year, an 8-4-1 in the men's side of things. Um, Obviously, Indy Hartwell was in there, Killer Kelly was in there, Danny Luna was in there, Tasha Steeles was in there, Jodie Frett was in there, not Masha Slamovich, of course, because she's the champion. I think Tessa may have been in there as well. But anyway, it came down. It was Tasha Steeles, it was Jodie Frett, it was Indy Hartwell, and Killer Kelly was the final four in this, or the fatal 4-way that team won the first one. And sometimes it could get confusing. But yeah, 4-on-4 tag. Indy Hartwell's team won. It was Indy, Tasha, Jody, and Killer Kelly. And then it goes into a fatal four-way with their four. Brilliant. It was also a brilliant showcase of the knockouts division, by the way, which is I love it. I do like that as well. Really think it was, knockouts don't, yeah, the knockouts division in TNA is very, very good as well. Because of the fact there are so talented people in there, and more coming. Harley Hudson, Myla Grace just coming in as well. Add strength and depth into. I want Missa Kate to be a full-time knockout. I think she could add something to that division as well. But it's a stacked division in TNA, and this was a perfect showcase of the knockouts division. But it was Killer Kelly who took advantage of Indy Hartwell hitting a finisher on Tasha Stills, and Killer Kelly picks up the victory, and she will go on to face Masha Slamovich, her former tag partner. Maybe at Slammiversary, perhaps. I can't remember if that's been announced when it's going to happen, but it will be happening. Killer Kelly, #1 contender. What I do like though, and I think it was a good one. The history of Masha Slamovich and Killer Kelly, that works. I do like the fact the Indy Hartwell, the Indy Hartwell stuff has it's a slow burn. Maybe that's going to lead to Bound for Glory, perhaps with Indy. I think Indy will win the Knockouts Championship this year. I really do. Um, and she'll have that dream come true moment. She was pictures of her with a Knockouts Championship as a kid on her socials and whatnot. So I feel as if that will happen. I think it's great that they're not rushing it. They've maybe rushed the Killer Kelly stuff, arguably, with Masha Slamovich. Maybe that could have waited a bit longer down the line. Or maybe TNA just want to get it out of the way, which is also fine as well. Because I think the build towards Bound for Glory this year is going to be Indy Hartwell and maybe Masha Slamovich. And Indy Hartwell, hopefully, will realize her childhood dream a bit like a lot of others in wrestling, and that wants to win the World Championship, and she can win the Knockouts World Championship at Bound for Glory. Perhaps. She didn't get an opportunity. Excuse me. She didn't get an opportunity this time. Killer Kelly did in a great 8-4-1 match. Such an innovative concept, something a little bit different, not just a run of the mill stuff. And TNA do that very well as well. Now, Macklin was recapping his match against All Odds with Mence Warner. And he's saying about how he couldn't, Warner couldn't beat him. And then he talks about next week's Championship Challenge tag team match featuring Trick Williams. And Macklin basically said that he's the last pillar of TNA wrestling. And he did deliver a little warning to Trick Williams in this. But out to the stage comes the aforementioned Mance Warner and Delander. Delanda called against all odds a robbery. She said the only person that are doing all the screwing around here are them. Excuse me while I throw up in my mouth a little bit. Anyway, Warner is definitely not very happy at this point. He is getting hostile to a security guard or a production guy. Security tries to calm him down. Tommy Dreamer comes out and tries to talk some sense into the Southern Psycho. Warner takes a step back, and when Tommy Dreamer comes out, usually something's going to go down, and that's exactly what happened here, because Mence Warner plants Tommy Dreamer with a suplex, and he hits him with a running knee. Are we going to get Tommy Dreamer in the ring with Mence Warner in the future? I don't know. But you don't lay out Tommy Dreamer without repercussions. That is certain. We'll see what happens next week on TNA Impact. Like I said, you can watch that on the TNA Plus app. Get it downloaded, get it subscribed. And if you want to watch TNA pay-per-views and TNA legends like AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, Jeff Jarrett, etc., get yourself the championship package. That will include all of the pay-per-views and all of the previous impacts and pay-per-view shows. That is not to be missed. I've got that package. Fantastic for me. Like I said, if you are a new customer for the UK and Ireland, I believe the offer still stands for 1 month's free in TNA Plus. Just type in Leon YIC in the code and you'll get 1 month's free TNA Plus. There you go. Backstage, Sami Callihan On the verge of 23 years of TNA at the anniversary, but the TNA Championship is being held by an outsider. So he's not happy about that either. However, he was interrupted by the Northern Armory and Eric Young. And Eric Young says people like AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, there you go, built TNA from the ground up. He calls himself and Callahan the heart of TNA. Callahan was like, I respect you, Eric Young. And I will, challenge this for a match next week on TNA, which will be great. And Eric Young did accept, but hit him with a cheap shot. It's just like, why are you doing that? Like, you think sometimes you look at some, like, you look at things sometimes, you think, why are you like, doing something stupid, like, Mence Warner attacking Tommy Dreamer? Slapping Sammy Callahan or cheap shotting Sammy Callahan is like writing out your own death wish or death warrant. You just don't do it. Eric Young has got, well, next week he may have some hell to pay in the space of Sammy Callahan. Um, and I wouldn't want to be EY next week on Impact. I'll say that. But also, coming up next week on Impact, we have got the Sammy Callahan Eric Young match. We've also got Knockouts tag team action. Masha Slamovich and Lei Ying Lee. Yeah, getting better at that. Against the Elegances, Heather and Ash. They got the championship challenge that returns, and Order 4 will have a summit next week on TNA. I don't know how that's going to go down. Nothing to do. And, when we do the TNA review next week, it may be a certain hosts of the Hitting the Turnbuckles birthday. Anyway, what a great way to spend my birthday morning watching some TNA wrestling. I can't wait for that and to review it as well. Don't know if we'll have a cake. We might have some cake and candles. Who knows? But anyway, main event time on TNA Impact. It was first class. It was the Hardys. This was great. Just to this day, Hardys just, we talk about like, iconic things, and you always say, when the Undertaker's gong hits the crowd, the Austin Glass smash, and all of that sort of stuff. When these Hardy boys music hits, they get that reaction. It is just unbelievable. It's crazy. It is to this day, they still get one of the biggest reactions in wrestling, and it's so good to see them having such fun in this run with TNA anyway. And this match was great. And again, I always goes to this and say people will not listen about AJ Francis and about what he can do. Casey Navarro, he was on the Chat GPT top 10 list of the next TNA World Champions. It could happen. He's that good. Casey Navarro is that good. He's got such a bright future, a bit like Leon Slater. Casey Navarro has it all, and this match was brilliant. I loved it. The Hardys, you got the usual Hardy Boy stuff in. You had the usual beat down for the hot tag like you normally get, but the match descends into utter chaos. Trick Williams comes out in this match, calls, and then just it was just like bedlam. Leon Slater comes out and Elijah's out there and everyone's going crazy. Joe Hendry comes out. There's this big brawl going on, and then Slater, as they're brawling on the outside, as Impact goes off the air, just flies out there on top of every single one of them. It was utter madness to end Impact Wrestling this week. And you got to end it that way because you got to say what's going to happen next week after a crazy ending like that. It was a great, great show from TNA tonight. I'm gonna have to say though, Leon and Jason Hotch for me gets the match of the night on this one. I have to say it was great to see the inspiration back with their theme. The 841 is an innovative idea. There was a slight injury concern from Indy Hartwell actually. She get a stomp that she took. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything to say that there was any ramifications or any injuries coming out of it. So hopefully she's okay. And it was just the ending was just fitting of what was a brilliant Impact wrestling this week. It was crazy. It was nuts. It was so, so good. I can't wait for next week. And you can see it next week if you download that TNA Plus app, get it downloaded, get it subscribed. And like I said before, if you are in the UK and Ireland and you haven't yet had an opportunity to watch TNA Impact, type in Leon YIC in the code for a 1 month free Impact Plus. But that was TNA Wrestling this week. If you just watched the TNA shows, we'll be back next week with another one. We'll be back with a lot of interviews coming up next week. We may have quite a big one on our hands next week as well. I can't say anything right now, but it could be very, very interested indeed. But catch it. This is TNA on X as well, for you can catch up on. They'll be tweeting out the matches that are going to happen this week. They'll be tweeting out any news, so make sure you follow TNA on X. Follow us on X as well. We're at HTT Buckle. You can follow us on YouTube at HTT Buckle as well. Follow TNA on YouTube as well. Just type in TNA in the search box. You can follow us on Instagram at Hitting the Turnbuckle Podcast. Just type in TNA and you'll get TNA up as well. But we'll be back, as I said, with more interviews, more review shows, more chat GPT stuff, anything and everything we'll be back with. But until next time, everybody, let's cross that line and stay safe.